Well, I'm here in Studio 61 right now with State Capitol reporter for the Republican-American Paul Hughes. A pleasure to meet him and talk to him. And he's here to talk more about what maybe we can expect from the Lamont administration. Good to have you. Thanks for making the drive up.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Glad to have you here. Okay, let's talk about where we think, just to start, that the administration's going to go. And certainly I don't know what Ned Lamont is going to do, but I sort of get the sense by looking at news reports that he's trying to do the best he can at being optimistic, but also couching people for a blow that we're going to have to make some tough choices.
Yeah, he told us a couple days ago that he was going to try to convey a sense of optimism, but also, determination to tackle on, the problems that face the state head on, such as, the fiscal instability.
Yeah. Easy to do,
easy to say. Yeah, quite. If it was easy to do, it would have been done by now.
Yeah, but there's a number of avenues that look like they might at least be easy sources of revenue, regardless of whether or not they're smart. Highway tolls, boy, that was a big one. Where does he stand on that? What do you think's going to happen?
Well, what he initially supported universal highway tolls, but later, as a candidate, he refined it to truck-only tolls, which modeled after what the state of Rhode Island is doing.
Yes.
He figured that was something that he could get legislative support. There was, as you're aware, bipartisan opposition to even studying the possibility of bringing back tolls last year. But that issue is definitely going to come back up. The Special Transportation Fund needs some sort of more reliable or future funding sources going ahead.
I mean, we tried to lockbox it in the past. It didn't always work so well. Yeah. And you're right. A lot of people, they were balking even at the price just for a study. For that sort of thing. Legalized recreational marijuana. That may be something where you can't really make that decision in a vacuum, given everything that's happening in states.
Well, each year there's been increasing bipartisan support for legalization of adult use of marijuana. They haven't quite got there yet. Governor Malloy had opposed recreational use of marijuana, so that presented an issue. Governor Lamont supports legalization and taxing marijuana, and you're right, when Massachusetts legalizes it and other states are moving to legalize it, particularly around the border states, that has had effect in the past. I mean, Sunday sales, for example, for liquors, that was one of the arguments. We're losing business to Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York.
Yeah, those old blue laws. Sports betting, somewhat of the same kind of situation, given what's happening in Rhode Island?
Well, sports betting is a little more complicated in Connecticut because of our agreements with the two tribes. The Mohegan and the Pequot tribes, and the share of the slot receipts that we get. I believe over the years it's been close to $8 billion. Yeah, I think it's roughly about $200 million a year.
Yeah. Yes, I believe that's. Well, you certainly know better than I do. I've got a very poor memory for those sorts of things. But that's a lot to go through. So that's looking at sources of revenue at this point. As far as cutting costs, given that we're facing a potential $2 billion deficit, there's not a lot of easy decisions there. Has he made any indication of where to go with that?
No, that's what I think people are going to be listening to in these speeches today. Because, I mean, these speeches today and in the reactions from the legislative leaders will be about setting tones, setting messages, sort of themes and visions. But, I mean, people really want to know, look, you're saying we got a $1.5, $1.7 billion deficit next year. How are you going to close it? Are you going to do it all through spending cuts? I'm not quite sure, but tax increases, that's another issue. I mean, he campaigned, he put revenues on the table, then seemed to take them off, but he's still counting on, and I think everybody is counting on, some sort of increase in revenue. Certainly we're seeing the income tax right now outperforming budget targets.
Do you think the, at least political climate, the general tenor of people in the state will be able to support him making a lot of tough choices in cutting programs? In other words, do the people of Connecticut finally feel like, okay, we might be at a rock bottom where we're going to support some sort of austerity?
Oh, certainly. But then it becomes, what programs do you cut? Well, wait a minute, that's my program. I like that one. But I think there's a lot of people out there that would say, hey, look, cut that entire deficit through spending reductions.
Yeah, it's always a little bit of the NIMBY. You got to cut something. Don't cut anything in my backyard.
Something's got to give. Clearly, revenue and spending aren't lining up, and the situation can't go on.
Yeah, and we were talking before. It doesn't look like there's any real indication from him what, if anything, he can or wants to do given the state's pension liabilities.
Well, that's a thorny problem. Right now, there's a commission looking at possibilities of maybe the lottery proceeds or selling off state assets. They're trying to find ways to help reduce this liability. But basically, one of the things they did last year or in the recent years was sort of stretch out the payments on the unfunded portion of our obligations.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see. There's certainly a lot we're going to go to today.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes, thank you so much
No
for
problem.
taking the
Glad
time
to be
come
here.
up here. A pleasure having you here.